thanks everybody for joining me here today. My name is Brian Barletta of Sounds Profitable, and this is our first product deep dive. I'm super excited to introduce you to Podscribe. They've got a really neat product, and they're, the first test drive of my new product, these product deep dives. Because what we're going to do here is, instead of a PowerPoint presentation or a PDF or press release or anything like that, I've convinced these guys to actually show the detailed inner workings of how their platform works and let me act as like a sales engineer for who their target audience is and ask really tough questions about how it goes. So we got Jacob and Pete here. I'm going to pass it over to Jacob. I want them both to introduce themselves, and then they're going to talk a little bit about what Podscribe is, and then we're going to dive into the platform.
Cool. Thanks for having us on, Brian. So my name is Jacob Lively. I'm the head of partnerships for Podscribe. I've got a background in industrial engineering and operations management, so it's a kind of a long story how I ended up here. But I'm very happy to be working on this product. This is something that I believe in deeply. And that's kind of my gig. Pete?
Yep. So super excited to be here as well, Brian. Won't go into the full background, but we've been in the podcasting space for a couple years, had an unusual journey starting as a listening app and then focusing on transcriptions for podcasters, and then now most recently for analytics for advertisers. So excited to be here and see what questions you have.
Yeah, glad to have you. So that's the tool we're going to look at today. It's called Podscribe, and specifically Podscribe for advertisers, right?
That's correct.
Yep.
Very cool. Awesome, guys. So I'm really looking forward to digging into this. So Jacob, why don't you tell me what Podscribe for advertisers is and how it's different than what you've been working on before?
So we actually started as a podcast player called Potable.co, and we gave recommendations based on actual content analysis from transcriptions, and we ended up producing some podcasts. Long story short, we realized that our strengths were in tech and not production, so we started focusing on transcribing podcasts for podcasters, and we've steadily been growing that business ever since. But more recently, we realized that we could analyze the transcripts and detect sponsors and provide useful intelligence for advertisers, and that resulted in the competitive insights platform that we're going to be talking about today.
Very cool. I'm a big fan of transcription and contextualization. One of the things in podcasting that we actually own on the hosting and ad serving side really is the content. So this speaks directly to me because it's the most interesting piece. It's what we're here to listen to. So let's dive into it. Where are we going to start in the platform today?
So what you've got right now is just the landing page. I'm not going to go over this too deeply because this is just what it looks like when you sign into the platform. What I'm going to do is just give a quick overview of kind of our most common use cases, and then we can talk through and take a more granular look at each individual feature as we go. So the first thing we'll do is come to our top advertisers page, and I've already got it pre-sorted here just to kind of show off that you can search by category, but generally this page is just a top-down view at the most prolific advertisers in podcasting. So we pull figures for shows, episodes that brands are advertising in through a combination of analyzing show notes and full transcripts for keywords. So that's how we figure out, there's 99 shows that HelloFresh is advertising in, 396 episodes, so on and so forth for this given time frame.
Well, let's dig into this real quick at the top. The genres, where are those gathered from? Like the iTunes podcast list?
That's exactly where they're gathered from. So okay. I've got it pre-sorted right now for just the last year, only comedy podcasts in the food delivery brand category.
Gotcha. And brand category is the IAB categories for advertisers?
100% correct.
Love it. Okay. And so we're going into the next section here, and it shows the brand category. And so is there a limit to how many categories a brand can have associated with it?
Technically, no. Pete, did you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, no, there's no limit. Most have 2 to 3, and usually we'll input those on our own, but we do allow users to actually input their own custom labels. If say they, thought one of the labels was incorrect, they could go in and add it there. And you could actually see, Jacob, if you click down on food delivery there on the menu, you can actually get an idea for how many advertisers we have in each category. So you can see, it can kind of give a rough picture there of how many automotive advertisers we may have. So
That's very cool.
yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah, no, that's really neat. And I see it says the last 365 days. How far back does your data go?
So we have data looking as far back as 2.5 to 3 years, but most of our shows we really started sampling them within the past year. Although we can go farther back if any client has a specific request and the ads are still back there in the show. We're happy to go back as needed.
Very cool. Okay, that's good to know. And so then when we're looking through this, we have the show count. So this is the number of shows that you've identified the advertiser in through both transcription and show notes?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then episode count is the individual episodes by the same logic. First seen is the first time the ad came up. Last seen is the most recent time. How often is that updated?
So for most shows that gets updated within a week or two. For shows where we've started doing air checks for, that typically will come out within a day or so.
Gotcha. So it's best to assume that even though this says November there, that HelloFresh is actively serving in December. Okay, that's very cool to know that. And then the top show genres are where HelloFresh spends the most.
That is correct.
Very cool. Awesome.
So for the sake of this demo, we're going to pretend that we're a brand or an agency representing a brand in the food delivery space. Probably a fair assumption that if you're in food delivery, one of your biggest competitors is going to be HelloFresh. So it would stand to reason that you want to kind of see what they're doing and maybe use that to inform your own strategy. So we're going to come over to HelloFresh's brand page right here. And the first thing that you'll see, obviously the brand categories. You'll see when we first collected data on them, their most recent, like when they were last seen, how many shows they've advertised in, the total number of episodes they've advertised in, and then their total estimated overall spend for this time period.
Well, let's go into that one because that is that definitely is gonna be unique to you guys, right? Because you're figuring out this math from the data that you take from show notes and from transcription and contextualization, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so walk me through how you get to that number.
Pete, you want to speak to the technicals on that?
Yeah, sure. So as you can see there lower, we have the shows listed where we found HelloFresh on. And then for each of those shows, we have a rough estimate of the cost for an ad on those shows. So that's how we get the baseline number. But we do have to factor in that we are sampling the data. So we're not going to get every single ad out there. So we have to factor in for how many shows and ads we estimate that we're finding out there. So we start with the baseline of how many ads we found, the rough cost per ad there, and then figure out, roughly, maybe if we've only seen an X percentage, we have to factor in that higher amount. And it's definitely worth noting that a lot of these numbers are indicators, and they're not meant to be taken as HelloFresh spent exactly 53.8 million between 228 and 1120. It's much better. The way we like to explain it is it's more of an indicator to get an idea really for where the brand is at spending wise. Have they spent 50K, 500, 5 million.
And it's mostly used for that ranking tool that you guys showed earlier that showed the order of the different advertisers, because you need something to identify who is first, second, or third.
Yep.
Now, who submits to you guys? You said the pricing, the CPMs for some of the shows that they work with. Do you have publishers that submit that information to you that say, like, we're in your ranking of top 100 in a certain category, we sell for X CPM?
Yes. So we've got, from a lot of major networks, we'll get rate sheets. And we'll kind of get into later the media buying side of the platform. But we have personal relationships with networks and podcasts, often through the transcription side, to simplify that process. And part of that is getting rate sheets and understanding, what the average CPM is for some of the shows on their roster.
That's very cool. And related to that, when you're saying that you guys are a sample size, you're obviously not scraping the whole, what do they report? Between 1.6 and 1.9 million total podcasts. But also we all know that not all of them, and not a very lot of them, in fact, make money off of advertising or do advertising. So when you say you're a sample, is your pool that you're comparing yourself against the whole 1.9 million, or is it a subset that you've determined to say this is the likely percentage of shows that actually can handle or support advertising?
Yep. So we are constantly increasing the amount of shows we're covering. We transcribe and sample the actual content for about 10,000 shows now. We're increasing that constantly, but that's just with the actual content. We also analyze the show notes for shows, just because a pretty good fraction actually put their sponsors in there. So that allows us to go a lot deeper into our analysis. So for that, we can go down into the top 50 to 75,000 shows by looking at those. So again, though, we're constantly increasing our coverage, and if there ever is a show where a client will come on and ask for the full backlog history, we're always happy to do that where possible.
Very cool. And yeah, I mean, I guess that super makes sense, especially in baked in ads, that they're going to want to call it out in the show notes, because the more conversions they get and the more visibility they get, the more likely the advertiser is going to stick around.
Yep.
Well, awesome. Let's continue on.
So what I'm going to do here is sort by listens per ad, just so that we can kind of get a rounder view of the data. So something that I didn't cover right away, down here, once you below this section, you'll see each individual show that we've collected data on that HelloFresh has advertised in. And that's broken down by the number of episodes that they've advertised in, estimated listens per ad, estimated spend for each ad, and then when they were first and last seen in that show.
What methodology do you use for listens?
Yep. So for listens, again, another number that's in an indicator, not an exact number, but we use a couple of factors for that. One is a pretty simple one, the number of ratings on iTunes, the number of subscribers, plus we're also starting to factor in social engagement and social followers as well to get a rough estimate for how many listeners a show has. And for that, with partnerships with hosting companies, we were, when we were first building our algorithm, able to get the exact listener data for the top, or for about 150,000 shows. So from that, we were able to build a reasonably accurate model off of that data based on those data points. So from the exact numbers that we did, or the exact download numbers, I should say, that we did have, we were able to build a model off that we're using.
Very cool.
Yeah, and something worth noting on top of that, as we develop these relationships that I spoke about earlier with networks, we'll actually get the exact download numbers for them. So these figures are being constantly updated and then tested against the previous model to ensure its accuracy.
That's cool. I hope you guys start splitting that out a little bit. I think it would be really neat to show what's directional versus what is actually ingested. These both have a ton of value. It's just good to look at both separately.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to this, the reason I sorted by estimated listens per ad is just so you could see where the outreach is for each individual show. So you'll notice here, Crime Junkie at the top, but they've only advertised in one episode. And then Call Her Daddy, which is actually one of the shows that Potable.co produced, and we ended up giving that to Barstool. They've only advertised in 4 episodes. But then you come down to My Favorite Murder, and they've purchased spots in 24 episodes. So clearly they found some kind of winning formula here. And again, we're pretending to be a brand or an agency that represents a food delivery service. We probably want to see what's working for them there.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So this is where we can take a deeper dive.
And actually, before we go on, just to look at that, that's 24 ads in since February of this year.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So that's within a 9-ish month period. You're seeing 24 episodes that it was in. That's a pretty big spread.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we can come to that podcast's actual show page. The first thing that you'll see here is the list of episodes that HelloFresh has appeared in. And we're going to go through each of these tabs individually. Brian, feel free to stop me if you want me to explain anything.
Yeah.
What you'll see here is this little CC logo. This indicates that we have a full transcript of this episode. And again, going back to our roots as a transcription platform, we're able to get a lot of critical data from these transcriptions that we otherwise wouldn't be able to. So let's see what that looks like really quick. So this is the transcript of that first MFM Minisode episode. And if you are a HelloFresh competitor, you probably want to see what HelloFresh is doing. So this is, there's an embedded player. You can click here and it'll actually play out the ad in real time. I'm not going to do that because it'll probably screw up the audio.
Good call.
But this HelloFresh ad is exactly as it's read by the host, so you can either read it or listen to it if you'd like to. And maybe use that even to inform some of your creative and kind of see, okay, what's HelloFresh doing exactly in the space that's working for them as far as creative goes?
Yeah, that's definitely a really interesting way to look at it. And so I'm looking through this. I mean, transcription's not perfect, and because there's no host that owns this, nobody's digging through it. What would you say your accuracy rating is for transcription, and what technology do you use to transcribe?
So speaking to the accuracy side, these are not our actual transcription services are generally buffered. We'll clean them up by human hand. So these are just raw AI transcriptions. And Pete, I'm assuming you're going to want to go into the technicals on that.
Yeah. So for our AI transcription, it's usually between 90 to 95%. So we do have an in-house engine. We're experimenting with using ours versus other third parties out there to try to find the right balance between cost and accuracy. So we're testing that out. So it's actually sort of varying between there, but for accuracy, typically between 90 to 95%, but it can really vary a lot depending on the audio or if there's crosstalk or a lot of other factors.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy to sift through all that. I think it's neat. If you want something that is like directional, like what you guys get for the ad side, I think that there are a lot of great options out there. But I think that when it comes down to it, the thing that you're offering to the publishers too, the cleanup and the real focus there, I think that's really neat and requires a lot of more custom handholding. So that's very cool that you guys offer both sides of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, coming back to this feature, you can see, all of these episodes are transcribed. And these are the ads that we've caught in each episode. So if you want to view and see what other companies are doing on the same podcast for whatever reason, you're able to do that as well.
Okay. Okay. So we can see the transcription part of it, and that's neat. And I know you guys don't transcribe everything, but on the ones that are transcribed, can we also see the show notes?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were to do that, you would just come back to the transcription page and click on the description here. And that'll show the show notes for that page or for that specific episode. And then you can also view all of the ads here. And if you click view ad, it'll just jump straight to that timestamp.
That's very cool. Yeah, I guess as a minisode, you probably are not putting a lot of show notes on there. But
yeah.
Awesome. Let's keep going.
Sure thing. So now coming back to the main page, we're going to go right to left here, and we'll start with the audience demographics and maybe understand why HelloFresh might be so successful here. So this is a breakdown of the listener demographics for this show. So 77% female, average age ranging between about 25 to 44. Location, all major metropolitan areas, no surprises there. Average income 50 to 75K, and then lots of people in marketing and advertising, broadcasting and entertainment, and then authors, writers, probably copywriters, directors, managers. Nothing that you wouldn't necessarily expect from a show like this.
So let's walk through this. So demographic data is like real hot in any advertising space, but in podcasting, we only get the IP address. And now there are partners like Nielsen and LiveRamp that can take the IP and they can match it to demographic data. That's a lot of work, and you guys don't get the IP address. So Pete, sending this right to you on the tech side, how do you get the demographic data?
Yep. So for demographic data, I believe we're fairly unique in how we do it. But what we do is for some of probably the most popular 5,000 or so shows, we link them actually to their dedicated social accounts. So for Joe Rogan, for example, we'll link Joe Rogan's show to his Twitter and YouTube. And then from there, using a combination of first-party methods and then also third-party data, where we analyze the public data there for their followers. So from that, for instance, by looking at Joe Rogan's followers on Twitter, we can get a rough idea that, say, 75% of them are male. You can get a rough idea of the age through a couple of techniques and other data through there. So we're constantly looking to improve that data. Again, it's not an exact science, obviously, and it does require the podcaster to have a dedicated social account with at least a minimum of 1,000 followers. We usually find it works best for Twitter and YouTube. And we've begun working with more and more publishers to actually validate the data that we have here, because the way we see it is we're not going to know their audience better than they are. So what we can do is provide a baseline for them, and a kind of a baseline for their show. And then if they're interested, our goal is always to work together to get the best possible data to show potential advertisers who are looking for a certain type of audience demographic who their message will resonate with.
And so when you match your own data, first and third party, from gathering all these social sources, when you match it to the publisher, what's the difference between the two? How close is your match?
So far, we're actually planning on releasing later this month or early next some more concrete numbers. But typically, we see it come within a 5 to 10% margin of error for almost all of the fields. So a lot of publishers, like, for example, just mid-roll, they'll get some of the data from Nielsen through IP matching, or they'll do user surveys. So they have their data through that. And so what we've typically found is that the data is surprisingly accurate. I mean, not necessarily surprising for us, but I think there's
I think you're right. The
Yeah.
demographic space is really tough. And I think surveys provide a unique view of the people that do respond. And it's very valuable for a publisher to have stuff like that. But matching it to something that you're doing by scraping social networks and looking at it from a very podcast specific view, like it is kind of surprising that it's that close, but in like a very good way that like validates that this is good and directional, and you're matching enough on them that the others can be trusted. I mean, like if you go into this, if you want to scroll down for a second, Jacob, if you go into this and you're trying to say, I only want to target people in Boston, Massachusetts, and I expect that they're going to be, that this show is going to be chock full of them because it's at that 20% mark, you might be disappointed that it's not exact there. But if you're just like, oh, these are the types of cities that it represents, these are the types of incomes, and where it like gets to, this isn't for exact targeting, this is for directional. So I think that's a really positive thing.
Yep, exactly. And we're going to be releasing early next year an indicator on it, if for shows that are publisher verified for the data as well. So then people using the platform can say, okay, the advertiser is verified, the listener numbers, the audience data, just to add another level of credibility here, because that is definitely a lot of the thing everybody obviously asks when they see this. Well, it's great you have this data, but is it real? So we definitely get that, and so we're confident in it, and yep.
No, that's great. No, it's spot on. I'm very, very cool that it is a priority for you guys to improve it.
Yeah, of course. If our clients can't trust the data, then the platform has very little value. So
that's super real. Awesome. Well, let's kick on to the next section. What are we looking at next?
So the next tab is Advertisers, and that's going to bring up exactly what you would expect, which is just a list of advertisers that have place spots on the show. So again, if you're food and beverage and food delivery, HelloFresh is what you're looking at, but any number of industry verticals, you'll be able to pick up on what other types of brands are advertising here. And something really cool that we just rolled out yesterday is this show timeline feature. So this is basically a Gantt chart that shows you where the overlap is between episodes that have been advertised in. So here you can see in this time period, HelloFresh, Squarespace, and Daily Harvest, we're all buying ad spots for this block of time. So you can see that throughout basically all of the data that we've aggregated as far as advertisers go. You can see where that overlap is.
That's really cool. That's really good for people to know when it looks like when you're trying to make a play on buying based on seasonality, right? When they take a dip, that's a really great view. Way better than the other view, because I'll tell you, when I was looking at the other view, I was like, this is awesome, but I can't really tell how much it could have been all from 2 years ago. Yeah, way better on that timeline view. Consider defaulting to it.
Yep. And one other quick thing there, Jacob, if you actually go back to the non-timeline view, so you can actually filter their advertiser list by the advertiser type. So if you type search there, and then you that search bar next to the download icon right there, so then you can search food, actually, and I think it should, it should filter based on the advertiser category there. So if you want to get a picture of like specifically, what advertiser categories are there, you can also do that as well.
What else? So we got the audience, the advertisers, and similar shows looks like it's next. So I assume this is where, HelloFresh has already got their claws into My Favorite Murder, and I'm a competitor, and I don't want to be in the same show, but I want to understand exactly what the appeal of the show is and maybe similar ones to find. Is that right?
Exactly. So this is where that content analysis engine that I talked about earlier from Potable.co kind of starts pulling weight in this platform. So it'll show you exactly like you said, some similar shows that you might be interested in as an advertiser that share either audience demographic or content qualities with My Favorite Murder.
Cool. And would I expect that this similar shows to be different than what I would see in Apple Podcasts for similar shows?
So I can take that one. So currently, yes, it is different because we do it actually based on the content. But to note, we actually do have a change coming out probably this month that will also show the shows that are actually in Apple Podcasts for convenience there, that are, based off of how or what shows similar or what shows this listeners for this one also subscribe to. So we are also putting that in there for convenience.
Yeah, I think I honestly think that's great, being able to see the Podscribe specific one and being able to see the Apple one, because both are going to have value to me if I'm looking for similar shows. Plus, the more similar shows that I can see, the better. Now, the ones that you link to for similar shows, are all those ones that you're covering through transcription or show notes? So they're in your network? Like if I click into those, do they bring me to the Podscribe page or the Apple Podcast page?
So those will all bring you to Podscribe links. We have just about all podcasts in Apple on our platform. It isn't necessarily guaranteed that we'll have the demographic data or sponsor data for them. For a lot of them, we will, but it's not guaranteed. But if there is one that you were interested in, that you wanted, we could always pull it pretty quickly.
That's cool. Two things on that. One would be a cool indicator, right? A color ring to show that they are in your network. And another, like you've mentioned this, and so I'd love to call out, if I'm a user of your platform and I want data on that show, how do I ask for it?
You just email us.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, and for our clients that have requested on-demand data, we typically have about a 24-hour turnaround on that. So it's not like you're going to be waiting for a week or 2 weeks to get demo data. You let us know, we'll pull it as soon as we can.
Yeah, the sponsor data sometimes can take a little bit longer, but yeah, typically demo data within a day, if possible.
That's very cool.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Where are we going next?
So the very last thing that I want to talk about, the description is just going to be, a general description of the show. I don't think we necessarily need to cover that. But up here, these little icons, these are all links to their social media if that's where you'd like to engage with them. But let's say, ignore the fact that HelloFresh is already on the show. Let's say you're ready to place a buy. This little email icon right here will reach out directly to this podcast ad rep's contact email. So in this case, this is an Exactly Right show, which is currently owned by Midroll. So this would reach out to our ad rep at Midroll. and then they would take your query from there. So, Brian, as I'm sure you're aware, the media buying process in podcasts, especially for people that are relatively new to podcast advertising, can be pretty daunting. So taking the guesswork out of that is another kind of huge boon of the platform.
I think that's killer. Being able to click a button and talk to someone who wants to take your money probably makes things a lot easier.
Yes, most definitely.
Right. And one thing with that is, so we don't have the ad rep contact for every show. We have it for most of the popular shows, and it's indicated by the blue mail sign there. And if we don't have it for whatever reason, we'll have the RSS email, which can be hit or miss, but we'll still have it there.
So what's that? You said we got one last thing we're going to dig into.
So that was it for the kind of the typical, standard use case. There are a couple more things that I want to talk about that are especially useful for people that are new to this space. So the first thing is like regionality. I think people generally think of podcasting as being a national medium, and a lot of the agencies that work with clients in podcasting, or not in podcasting rather, only have local outreach or capabilities. So we want to help those agencies and brands kind of find a voice in podcasting. So here's a real actual use case. We had an agency with a client who owns a very successful Massachusetts-based furniture store.
Oh, did you pick that because I'm from Massachusetts?
No, that's actually entirely a coincidence, believe it or not.
I love it.
So we help them find shows with listeners concentrated in the greater Boston area. So if we come to this Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast, this is one of the shows that we recommended, and come down to their audience demographics, kind of akin to what you were saying earlier. This looks a lot different than your typical, super popular podcast, because it's not London, LA, so on and so forth. It's Boston, Worcester, Framingham. Hoping I'm not getting crucified for mispronouncing Worcester.
You're close enough. I got it. Yeah. No, that's actually really interesting. I mean, to look at the specific towns on there, like we have Boston, New York, Providence. We'll give them some credit there, but then everything else is, LA. Yeah, but like right. Framingham. I went to college in Framingham. It's a little bit out there. So to see that in New Bedford up there, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
that's really cool. And so it's really just the top 10. And so whatever the granularity of that show is, it'll break down the top 10, right?
Yep, exactly. So same thing for, if you own a Michigan furniture store and you want to advertise and focus on like Detroit, Ann Arbor, pretty soon we're going to have a search function that'll enable you to actually search by location. So just completely cut out the guesswork.
Will it let me search by all the demographic? Can I say location, age, gender, income, everything?
Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and pull up a mock-up that we have right now.
I love mock-ups. Everybody hold them accountable. This is going to be exactly what it looks like, and it'll be launched by the time. No, just give them. I think what's cool about this is this is really great, and this is why I want to do the deep dive. So many people are afraid to show what's coming. I think a lot of people have compassion. I mean, how much tolerance did we give Google when it had beta next to it for how many years? So very, very excited to see this mock-up.
So Pete, I'll kind of let you go over this because you're going to be the one that's implementing it. So.
Yep. So it looks pretty similar to the search page or the top podcast page as is, but you can notice a couple things that are different. So you can see the sliders where you can roughly you can set your minimum number of listeners that you want on it. We'll probably add a maximum as well, just in case you don't want to, have Rogans appearing in there. Similarly, you can set your ideal gender. So if you want it to be, 40 to 60% male, you can adjust those sliders there. You can also adjust where you want the estimated average income of the listeners. You can adjust the Apple Cat podcast category. And we don't have location yet in there. We're still working on that, but that will definitely be another field there. So this is like, kind of inspired by use cases similar to the one Jacob brought up with the Massachusetts show. So we want to make it just easier to find the right shows that fit, that have the audience that will best fit a brand's message. So we're hoping to actually have this out later this December, at least the first version of it.
That's awesome.
The beta version, just so we can start getting feedback and people can start using it. And it'll roughly look something like this, but with a location field as well.
Yeah, my first call out, I would love the ability to hide a show, right? Like you said, being able to filter it so that Joe Rogan doesn't pop up. But if I'm doing a search and I'm just like, for this search, let me say that I never want to see Joe Rogan again.
Right.
That would be pretty neat.
Yep.
This is great, guys. I'm excited to see this.
Soon, yeah. We're looking forward to it.
Awesome.
So the last thing that I want to talk about is keyword search. So let's say you're not a food delivery service anymore. You're like a hyper-targeted, hyper-specific product or service, and your goal isn't to hit 1 million listens on your ad. It's to find an audience that's 100% primed for your product. Because we have transcriptions, we can find mentions of very specific terms. So let's say you're a software developer and you're looking to pitch a learning tool for new Python devs. If we search for Python programming, boom, now you have 53 potential candidates for placements with small, often budget-friendly shows that have audiences that are already looking for and already talking about what you're selling.
That's very cool. Okay. And so this is a mix of from show notes and transcription, or only transcription?
Yeah, so it's both show notes, transcriptions, and title. So if for a lot of these all are show notes, in the way you can tell is if there's a play button. If there was a transcription match, there'd actually be a play button and you could actually play that specific section. But a lot of the matches are just show notes.
Gotcha. That's very cool still. And if I click on these, it'll bring me over to the Podscribe page for it?
Yep.
That's awesome. Guys, this is a really cool product, and I think more people should check it out. And I absolutely peer pressured you into going old school podcast advertising. And I said, how do we get people to use this? And, my suggestion was, let's do a promo code. So, Pete, you want to talk us through what the offer is for people?
Yeah, sure. So for any listeners of this, if you are interested in giving it a shot and seeing what it could do for you, you can use code Sounds Profitable for 50% off your first 3 months. So you can just email us, code Sounds Profitable.
Love it. That's very cool of you guys. I'm really excited to see the response from that. And, I really want to hear from everybody else what they thought of this product. I think what's really neat here is that Pete and Jacob have really shown that they're willing to be open about what this product is. And what that says to me is that users of this platform should feel comfortable talking to them and asking for improvements and give their feedback and show their use cases, because these guys really want to listen to that. So I really hope you check out this platform. I want to hear how you liked it. They're going to want to hear your feedback on it. And then we're going to do a Q&A in the comments on the premiere of this. So if you're around, would love to hear your questions and answer them live for you. So guys, thank you so much, Pete and Jacob. Thank you so much for being here and being the first company on our product deep dives. And I hope you have enough improvements in 2021 that we sign you back up and we do another one.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be back next December if it's up.
Love it.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate the questions.
Yeah, thanks, guys.